the tyrant.
Hey Strat fans, it's Colonel Strat, the Strategy Extraordinaire here, and today I'm going to go into my second to last race guide. We're getting close to the end of all the races for Warhammer 3, and to bring in these ones, it's the Big Bag Ogres. So, the Ogres are a very peculiar race in Warhammer 3, and it's one that's been highly anticipated by a lot of folks. I was excited as well, but in theory, they're actually my least favorite race, but they're still pretty good, and they're still pretty cool to play. A very unique style, and for this guide, I'm going to be using Rhesus, just because he's more vanilla. Doesn't have that many bonuses for other things other than upkeep and income. So, without further ado, let's get into his campaign mechanics and show you just how beefy these ogre boys can get.
You know why we're here. Meat, loot, it all belongs to us.
Yes, meat, loot, sit on a horde, and just eat it all. That's the ogre way, I tell you. So, thank you for that, Greases. So, for the ogres, they're a very peculiar campaign, but it's always nice to have a fresh way of doing it. I think they could do better, but it has a lot of groundwork and it lays out pretty well. So the ogres, these big boys, they have a very unique campaign mechanic because they have no like big settlements. So what does that mean? I might hear you ask. What that means is that they all have minor settlements. So all the ogre camps, all the ogre settlements can only go to tier 3. Every single one of them. Even if you get like the capital ones, they still won't. But they compensate for this for having ogre camps. So I believe when they recruit a lord, I'm trying to remember, because you get certain ogre camps that you can form, and then you can place them down anywhere.
Ogre violating. The volcano will send us gifts.
Yeah, okay. So, like, Greasus is a regular army, but he can encamp himself as well. And then, once you get enough food, you'll be able to get camps to, like, set up all over the map. So, you can strategically place your camps to where, you put them like in a valley here for a choke point, and then you can buff up the camp, and the camp gives you food, which keeps your men from starving. But to get on to the basic parts of it, so in 10 turns, they unlock contracts, which are basically missions that you can do to gain titles, special rewards, and like debuff and buffs up to for your lord and for your faction, as well as getting money. And it's basically, ogres are big mercenaries, so they can be contracted to work for whatever faction wants to pay them, and they'll do really well as long as the faction gives. You'll get food and you'll get money from each one, and the better ones you do, the more you get. Now,
smart play.
Now for the technology, their technology is pretty streamlined here, as you can see, but they do offer quite a bit of bonuses to growth. And now camp, once you get this unlocked, you get a camp limit. So the camp is what I was talking about before, and it gives you food and money and like a free upkeep garrison. And you could place it anywhere. So it really does help your playthrough. But the rest of the tree is kind of, it's like you get these ones here are like a camp upgrade and certain population surplus or some certain buff to the camps or an army ability. And then all these other ones are just like regular buffs, like casualty replenishment, growth, diplomatic relations, income, maybe some melee attack or defense, you know, recruitment rank, stuff like that. So it's pretty standard for a tech tree, and it's pretty streamlined. So there's not any like different ways to go, but it's not a horrible tech tree. Diplomacy-wise, like I said, the ogres aren't the most diplomatic, but they do contracts with other races, and you'll get some diplomacy buffs from completing those contracts. Now, what's this meat indicator right up here, I might hear you ask? Well, meat is what keeps the ogres going. So the more battles they win, like I'll show you right here. Oh, right, he's in that stance. Move him out. Let's see what we get for this victory. So we can eat them. We get some meat rewards as well. And it really does. And then we can get a big name as well. So big names are basically titles that give you special buffs to units or debuffs for certain units and for himself. So like you see the meat meter here, the more meat he has, the more he can keep going. It's like a tax. So like he needs meat to maintain the army. The bigger the army is, the more meat you need. And then you can also offer his meat to the Great Maw for a buff. Either it be magic, melee attack, campaign movement range, which is actually really cool. I really like that one. Or the global recruitment reduction. It's, you know, they're decent buffs, and they can really help out in a pinch if you're trying to catch somebody. You just pop that campaign movement range, and then you're able to catch them. Now, big names here. You could choose. I think you can only choose one name at a time, but you get a special buff like this one, Horde Master, or increases mass and melee defense. I will probably do Shockingly Obese. I think, yeah, and then you can change a big name later on when you unlock them. So big names they're like titles, are switchable titles, and you unlock better big names the more you complete their objectives. Everyone will have different big name objectives, kind of random tasks to do. Now the ogre economy and building structure is pretty simple. Again, they only have they only have minor settlements, so again they don't have that good of a building browser, but their units are very, very effective. Especially their ogre units here are very effective. I think though you can only recruit the really, really good units from a camp. Yeah, I think that's the only way you can recruit really good units from a camp. So if you get a camp and place it down, you're able to build like the tier 4 and 5 buildings, whereas all the regular ones are just going to be, you know, small minor settlements, because they don't have any big settlements. Like I'll show you here. Takes it. You can occupy it, and it'll just be a minor settlement again. But you'll get a chance to deploy a camp whenever that technology's done, and then you can deploy a camp anywhere, so that you can recruit better units, and also it gives you a camp garrison, and it's the only. I don't think it makes it a tier. I think you can go up to a tier 5 for a camp, but you can only have certain many camps. So every other settlement in the game, even the 10 slot settlements of other factions, will be automatically only a 3 slot minor settlement for the ogres. They don't, their brains don't work too good to build big cities like that. But anyway, that does it for the campaign. Again, it's very unique with the whole meat mechanic, and the fact that they don't have any major settlements, but they have the camp mechanic. It really does come in handy to be able to place down camps anywhere and keep them moving, because you can move them. They're like portable armies that you could just move all around the map. But without further ado, let's go into some army compositions, because the ogres do pack quite a punch. Alright, and here we are with a tier 1. So for the start with the ogre kingdoms, it's kind of slim pickings, but I usually pick ogre bulls and noblars. Noblars are these like little goblin looking guys. They're kind of like, they are exactly like goblins, and they're a little bit lesser, but they have a whole lot of entities, and they can soak up, and they have an expendable trait, which means that they can become a efficient damage shield for the ogre bulls to soak up some missile fire or whatever they need to do to keep the hard-hitting infantry, alive. Now behind them is the ogre bulls. These are the traditional ogres, just like big old guys with big old sticks and swords and stuff to just smash enemies. They have the ogre charge, which means they when attacking a braced charged defenders, this unit only does half of its charge bonus, meaning that they'll still be able to do a charge bonus even if the enemy unit is braced. And then they have wall breaker, which means they can destroy walls and melee, as well as just having pretty decent stats for a early tier 2 unit. And then on the sides here, I have saber tux packs. These guys are fast, and they can help us, get around the enemy archers and deal with them. So they're good to have in the early game, but in the later game they become obsolete pretty fast. Back here we have Noblar trappers, which these are the missile infantry of the Noblars. They have the Noblar traps, which reduce enemy speed, expendable of course because they're Noblars, and they do a decent amount of missile damage anti-infantry as well. Now for the Lord and his heroes, we've brought Greasus on his little chariot here. He looks so happy with his big old stick in one hand, his big old meat in the other. And then we have a hunter, which is the melee hero of the ogres. Actually, I like the look of them. They're actually pretty cool. And they have a couple nice abilities, as well as a nice melee and missile strength, because they are an ogre. And then we have a fire belly, which is the ogre wizards, and they're actually pretty good in melee combat as well, because they're ogres. So without further ado, let's take this tier 1 army and battle against the tier 1 Cathay army. Alright.
Take it all! This way! Consider it done. Noblars! Let's go, Noblars! Overwhelm them! Looking for him! Looking for him! Spear him! Boss says so. Stalker of prey! Guts out, boys!
Alright, let's get in there, get cracking.
They're dead! Overwhelm them! Spear them! Let's go, Noblars! Meal time! The glory of flame!
Alright, let's do some flaming attacks.
Princess Gold Tooth! Smash them to pulp! Limb from limb!
Alright, we'll do an explosion on these guys as well.
Immolation! Incineration!
The new Noblars were going to retreat. That's just kind of how they are.
Bring us meat!
And you can do this, which reduces their speed.
Strongest, richest. Noblars attack! Noblars!
Alright.
These ogre mates!
Let's get those Noblars in. Like I said, the early game is more just us trying to, like, bash the enemy and give us some type of buff. You know? That's pretty much what we're trying to do in the early game, is just bash the enemy with our overwhelming, you know, size.
Seeking prey!
Because our mass is our biggest weapon right now. And that's pretty much what it's going to be for a while.
Find a meal! Serve the ogres! For the masters! Grease us gold! The strongest, the fattest!
Do the burning head. Alright, let's do this on our weakest ogre unit. Yeah, that heal will be great.
When do we eat? Hungry!
And it kind of becomes just a slog fest.
Cracker! Grabber! Killer! Ogres! Rampage this way! I'll say prey!
Alright. Fireball!
Call me over tyrant. Oh yes. I ain't no gobbo. Bring us me, for sure. The more tools. First ride.
Yeah. Like I said, it's kind of more just a slog in the early game because you're not really, you don't have any heavy hitting ogres and you're using Noblars a lot, but it still isn't too bad. So this will be more of like a close victory, but that's, you know, that's just how the ogres play. They have to, you know, they have to hit hard or else they're going to suffer, and because of their mass, their unit's mass, they're very easy targets for missiles. So any type of missiles they're going to do a bad time. But the ogres, our ogre units didn't take as many hits as our Noblar units did. So that's still decent. So, but it does get better in the later game. And again, against Cathay, they have their harmony buff and all that. So it does a lot to have, you know, more melee defense because they don't have as good melee stats as they do have insane weapon strength. Alrighty, so now let's move on to a tier 2. Alright, and here we are with a tier 2. So for the tier 2, a lot of upgrades. We've ditched our Noblars completely to just go strictly ogres, and it takes a little bit to get this way, but by the time of tier 2 you should be able to get mostly ogres. So for the ogres we have in the front, we have more ogre bulls, but this time with iron fists. This gives them an extra, like a pokey thing on one of their fists, so they're able to do a little bit extra damage, and also buffs their stats a little bit, so they're a little better in combat. So they do a little better. There's pretty much ogre bulls, just a little upgraded. In the back, we have the same ogre bulls, but with dual weapons this time, so they have bonus for his infantry. So they're going to be able to do more as a supporting unit. And just, you know, their mass charge and everything is just going to do so much damage. In the very back, we have lead vultures, which is probably my favorite unit, with just how ridiculous it is with their fucking cannons. Like ogres, their missile troops are like artillery. So this is monstrous cannon infantry, and they have like these little cigars or fuses they smoke out of their mouth as well. They're just insane. They have 96 armor-piercing missile strength for 200 range. They're just insane. They're like a mobile artillery piece. That's very, very, very big and angry. So we got 4 of them in the very back, and then on the side here, I brought gorgers. Now gorgers, they're really grotesque monstrosities, but they are very, very good in combat when they get into it, because they have anti-infantry and armor piercing. And really, you could have gorgers or ogre bulls with dual weapons. I like to bring both because gorgers work more as like a flanking unit. They do a lot more damage in the fray when they're used as a cavalry troop to get around behind enemy missile troops, because they just do so much damage with their frenzy and they're unbreakable. They also have this unit it has a gorger ability. I think they can, I'm not sure, but they have a special gorger ability as well. I haven't looked much into it, but yeah, so they have unbreakable, wall breaker, frenzy. Already they're just really good fast troops that can supplement your cavalry. Alrighty, so now let's take, oh right, of course I forgot, we brought the same heroes as last time. They don't have mounts, so it's just them. Just Greasus, our hunter, and of course our Firebelly. But they do have, I think they do have a couple mounts, and we'll show those in the tier 3, because we will be bringing these 3 the entire time. I always use a Firebelly, and a hunter is really good for like a little bit extra missile damage as well as some support. So let's get into this fight against the Skaven.
Looking for me. Here we go. Off we go. If I gotta, I choose here. Flaming footsteps.
Get 2 gorges to go over there.
Iron Feet. Good plan. Guns down, boys. Iron Fists. Meal time. Ogres attack. Killing time. In my sights. It's happening. Carve the meat! Eat 'em!
Let's send these gorgers around the side. These gorgers will take care of those guys. And then of course we have this, so let's use it on our most weak. Yep, these are our most weak ogres.
The quarry is mine!
Of course, like that.
Dinner!
Alright, gorgers, let's take them out. Then we will do a firestorm right on these globadiers. Alright.
Ogres! Bring us meat! Off we go! Iron Fists! Off we go! Boss says so!
Alright.
Take it all! Iron Fists! Drive on the
Alright, I'm gonna move our lead belchers up so they can do more damage. And then our iron fist will come up here. Gorgers do so much damage as well that they're good enough to be brought even into the tier 3 because of how much damage they can do. But they are still very squishy because they have no armor and no type of resistances. So if you leave them unchecked, then they're going to hurt.
Guts out, boys! Crusher! In my guts! Ogres attack!
Alright. Heal them up again. I love these heals that the ogres get as well. Really helps them do a lot more damage. And we did that one a lot better. As you can see, we had a lot more heavy hitting infantry, and the lead belchers helped a lot, and the gorgers are just, oh, they're so good to get once you finally get them. Even though they're like hideous, they're really good once you get them. Alrighty. And we just were able to slap them around easily. Alrighty guys, let's prove that. Now that you've seen the tier 2, let's move on to a tier 3. And here we are with a tier 3, so now we've amped it up to 100 now. And these are probably the most fun times you can have being an Ogre Kingdoms player. Just watching all your big juicy boys just run through everything. So what we've had here is it's a lot smaller for us. It's only 207 entities in total, but they're just so strong as single entity, as almost single entities, that they're so good. Even though they lack so many entities compared to the enemy, they're just so good with how little entities they have. So up in the front we have Iron Guts, arguably the best ogre frontline infantry unit with 100 armor, 82 leadership. Well, I think the base leadership is 70, and a really decent melee stat, as well as armor piercing anti-infantry. They're really good, and that armor is what makes them so good. They also, because they're great weapons, that's why they have such a high armor piercing value as well. So they're just the best frontline ogre infantry. Now on the sides we have crushers. Now these crushers are probably the best ogre cavalry you can get. I usually avoid ogre cavalry in the early game just because they're so expensive, and because they don't really they lack the punch until you get to the late game, and then I usually keep a couple. But you could easily just put more Iron Guts or some more lead belchers, or even a couple more stone horns instead of these, or a couple more iron blasters. But I like to include them because I would choose them. Now in the back we have our lead belchers again. I usually keep these guys all the way to the end game because they're just that good. There's not really that much of an upgrade from them, other than if you want to go to man-eaters, but I don't really use man-eaters just because of their inferior armor stat and their inferior missile attack. So that at this point having over 100 missile strength with these lead belchers, they're just so good. And then on the sides we have some stone horns. This is the special Regiment of Renown stone horn, but they're really good. They're big monsters. They do a lot of damage. They do a lot of anti-infantry damage, and they're always really frightening to come up against. And in the back we have Iron Blasters, the ogre's artillery unit. Like, look at that Nobloil running right in the cannon. He's so happy. And you know, the unit model is great, and then the Iron Blasters have sundering attacks, insane missile strength at 1.4k. They're just insane. And I always keep a couple of them, or even a full battalion of 4 of them. That way I can just pepper the enemy, and they are really good. Now you might have noticed the one thing different is our hunter is on a stone horn now, so he's a lot better. And I've switched out my fire belly for a butcher of the Great Maw. The Great Maw is a decent spell lore, but it's not. I like the lore of fire better, but I'm going to show you what the lore of the Great Maw can do. It is still a pretty decent spell lore. Alrighty, and then with Greases, that rounds out our cast. Let's go on to this battle against the Greenskins. Alright.
In my gut. Sure. Iron guts. Take it all. Iron guts. Me. Tracking quarry. Killing time. Over tyrant's orders.
Alright, let's get these guys closer so lead belchers can do some more damage.
Scourge of beasts.
Alrighty.
Tracker, trapper, killer.
Alright, where's my Great Maw guy? Alright. I'm going to show you. Yeah, we do have this heal, which is actually pretty decent. We'll also buff up that unit with that.
Crushers! Let's go, boys! Iron guts!
Alright, and then now that we have our guys back here, we're going to be able to do a whole lot more. They do have Bull Gorger, which increases melee attack. Alright, one of our Iron Guts fled because they lost their leadership. Again, it's easy for them to lose leadership because of how big their entities are. They can take a lot more missile fire, and that's literally what's causing that guy to rout. But already 2 minutes, we've already wiped them out because it's just that overpowered. The ogres can become very overpowered once you get them into the late game, as you can see, because they're artillery, the iron blasters, the lead belchers, the iron guts themselves are not as powerful, but you know, it just that coupled with their stone horns, which are insane mounts, and then their horse crushers and all of their cavalry is just, it's insane, and it's always going to be that way. So that's why it's imperative facing the ogres. You got to take them out before they get this powerful, because they can become insanely powerful and wipe your army out in a minute. So that does it for the army compositions. Let's wrap this thing up now, shall we? Alrighty, Strat fans. So that does it with our Ogre Kingdoms guide. I hope you learned a lot from this and how insanely powerful the ogres can be, but that they have to really work to get it, because they will struggle in the early game to get some effective units. But once they get their big old ball-busting units, they're going to be more than a reckoning if one dares cross into their swamp. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and again, like, comment, share. Let me know how I'm doing, because I really do enjoy all the comments, all the talk. And I reply to all of them. So again, I thank you so much for watching and sticking through it. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you guys. Keep it strategic, Strat fans. Colonel out.